I believe it's the everyday change maker, people like you and me, who have the power to make real meaningful change one small step at a time. Hi, I'm Linda Mackey, and I'm a personal brand photographer and coach, helping entrepreneurs to breathe life into their image, passion, and purpose. And this is the Eloquent Entrepreneur podcast, where I chat with my clients and change makers alike from across Canada and beyond about the work they do, the stories that have shaped them, and the impact that they're making, all to inspire and motivate others to do the same. Because making a difference just starts with showing up, and these conversations remind us just how empowering that can be. So welcome to the show and enjoy. Today I'm speaking with a very special guest. He's been on the show before when we first started a couple of years ago. Welcome, Mike Reilly.
Well, thank you for having me, Linda, and I'm glad to see that Sophie is engaged in the background there.
Yes, she's always around. She follows me around everywhere. Well, thanks for joining the show again. I wanted to chat with you because there's a lot going on. So let's just start where you're at right now. So let's tell the audience, what your work is all about and what you're focusing on in your business and in your life.
So in my professional role, I am a financial advisor at Gaining Altitude Financial. We're here in the West Shore, just outside of Greater Victoria. I have clients from around the region, but thanks to the developments of the internet, I'm able to work with clients across BC, Alberta, and Ontario. Recently just added Saskatchewan as a province where I can represent. Some of that's out of intent, and some has just been that people are mobile and they move away, but they still want to maintain that relationship. So by being licensed in other areas, you're able to have that flexibility. The focus of the practice is really about financial literacy rather than, how can I, what sort of investment should I have, or what sort of insurance? Those, of course, are solutions. But it's really more about what is that you want to get out of your life. How are you able to use money as a tool for that? I was in a meeting this morning, and the person I was talking to was talking about their financial advisor and what a good experience they'd had, which is great to hear. The interesting thing about the industry is that the competition is not other advisors, because 80% of Canadians do not receive financial advice in any form, even from someone that they may see at the bank every 2 or 3 years. So where we focus our work in is on that 80% who have not taken action. They haven't started saving, they haven't started investing, they haven't purchased the risk management tools of insurance, and it's mostly out of ignorance and apathy. We don't talk. It's not taught in schools. Our parents generally don't talk to us about money. Yeah. So while successful millionaires get lots of opportunity for advice, and there's a huge competition to try and pick up $5 million from one institution to another, I made a conscious decision that while those are great cases, the real value in what I can bring is, did you just buy a house? Did you just get married? Did you just have a child? Are you in a position where you really need to start taking action on things before it's too late?
Just to share my own personal experience working with you for several years now, which I think is really what makes you different and sets you apart from other financial advisors, is that you have such a vast knowledge, but you're also very empathetic and compassionate, and you really do care about your clients. And I would speak to being a female. You have the patience, and how should I say, no question's a dumb question. I just always feel safe talking to you, and you're very good at explaining things and, providing somebody with a bigger picture versus, what are you going to invest in today?
Well, thank you. That's very kind. And I'll just echo that I really enjoy working with women like you, who make decisions not only based on fact, but also with that understanding that they live in the real world. Not to throw other, men under the bus, because I happen to be one, but men, I find, tend to, overestimate their ability to overcome obstacles. They underestimate the impact that something negative is going to have in their lives, and they overestimate their ability to recover. So when I sit down with a couple, not all the time, but often, the insurance conversation is somewhat lost on the male partner, because they're thinking about, well, my buddy at work got 12% on his returns, and what do you think about crypto? And while those are valid questions, I know it's usually the woman who understands that. Well, if we don't have emergency savings, what are we going to do when there's a slowdown at work? Or, if we don't have disability insurance, what are we going to do when one of us can't go to work because we can't stand for 8 hours? Or if we get cancer, or if one of us doesn't make it home? I find women are much more realistic about those impacts. And it's much more satisfying to see heads nodding than somebody's drifting off because they're thinking about the money they could be putting into a fishing boat.
What's the story behind how this all started for you, and what sparked your interest in being a financial advisor?
Yeah, I think you raise an interesting point that most people, at least those that I know in the industry, don't come into this with that being their first career choice. When we think about the financial industry, most people think either of someone that works in a bank or maybe a stockbroker, and that's about it. So it is. I sit on the board of our professional association, and one of the challenges we have is that there aren't young people coming in to the field, which is going to be a real issue down the road. As if the average age of a financial advisor is 62, those people are going to be leaving soon, and we are expecting the largest intergenerational wealth transfer in human history in the next 10 years as the baby boomers die and pass their legacy on to the next generation. And that's a generation who has received virtually no financial advice. They're essentially financially illiterate, and there aren't professionals that are in place to help them with that. The biggest recipient is going to be the government, because most of that transition will be done in a tax inefficient manner, and the federal government will be a beneficiary of that. So,
what does that mean? What do you mean by that?
Even something as simple as an estate bypass. So, if someone dies and it's not outrageous to think that their estate could be $1.5 to $2 million if they own a house and some investments. That money, if it goes entirely through the will be exposed to probate, which in some provinces is, like BC, you'd be looking at about 14% on average on that, just for the right for the government to allow for the estate to settle. So that alone is one area where tax, if the plan is set up so that it can be moved to the next generation outside of that probate, the estate itself will save hundreds of thousands of dollars. In addition to the capital gains that estates could be subject to, would then be locked up in the estate, and the cost for lawyers and court costs, especially if it's disputed, can be fairly high as well. So those are just two examples of having a conversation between the parent generation and the next generation as to how do you want this money to move? What's important to you? What do you want your legacy to be? Should we be thinking about charitable giving?
Yeah.
Not only as a method of benefiting society, but as a good tax solution for you. So those are just two examples of that conversation will be expensive.
Exactly. Yeah. And honestly, I can relate to that, because when my dad passed away, we had no education around his finances, anything to do with what he had or didn't have. And then we had to deal with the probate, which we had no idea about. So it was a real crash course for my brother and I. And so that's a really good example of, I'm going to make an appointment with you and my son so that he understands, what's in our estate and all the financial affairs that he needs to be aware of. So because that's something that my brother and I didn't have, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it was quite an eye opening experience, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
And so many people, only half the population, according to surveys, have a will. So you've got half the population that doesn't even have that. And then of the people that have a will feel, well, that's enough. The will is all I need to do. I don't have to have any further conversations because the executor will take
yeah,
care of everything and that's it. Well,
exactly, yeah.
that's just not true.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's all the more reason why people should have a financial advisor, because you not only advise them on their money and their, um, planning for the future financially, but you also can give advice on what they need, like their will and who's their executor and all those things that most people, like you said, most people don't even have in place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, this opens up a whole other can of worms, but
Sure. Another conversation.
so
Your question to me was, how did I come to be?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think, like most people, born in the 60s, growing up in the 70s and 80s, money was just not something that was talked about. I didn't know how much money my parents earned. I didn't know how much
Yeah.
the house cost, and not that you should necessarily have that, but just an example of how there's no financial conversation at all. So the only time I ever really heard my parents talk about money was sort of monthly, where they would fight about the bills. And my dad always thought there was more than enough money, and my mom thought there was never enough money. And both of these biases the framework through which they saw the financial world were both wrong, but they were valid from their perspective. So to me, my experience with money was that it was a source of conflict, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I got a degree in biology, not necessarily because I wanted to be a biologist, but it was a career that wasn't necessarily financial rewarding. Um, uh, I certainly enjoyed my early years in the profession, but that attitude towards just keeping finances at an arm's length and not really worrying about whether there was money or there wasn't money. I know in my first marriage, we both had a different attitude towards money, as most couples do. Uh, yeah. But because for me, it was a source of conflict, and conflict is something I tend to avoid. It's one of my personalities. We just never talked about it, and bills would pile up, and there was no understanding about what is it that we're spending on, what is it that's important to us, what are our goals, the kind of conversations I would now have with a client. And like most people that divorce, finances were probably the majority of the reason for that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think from personal experience, I mean, we didn't know you then, but my husband and I actually worked with a money coach, and that I think saved
Mm.
our marriage at the time.
Yeah.
And we have, gained a healthier attitude around money, and how to talk about it. I mean, because I was the
Mhm.
same as you. I mean, we just never talked about it, and we kind of avoided, how much money is in the bank, or we kind of avoid anything to do with money and like bills and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah. And
Um,
if there's a perception
yeah,
of an imbalance, if one partner has come into the marriage with what they perceive as a greater contribution, whether it's true or not,
yeah,
that can lead to avoidance. It can lead to dominance. It can lead to undermining. People. We have a great ability to self-sabotage, and money is a perfect tool to wield for that. So
exactly. Oh my gosh.
during that time, I had the good fortune of meeting a financial advisor who, and I didn't know it at the time, but is actually one of he's famous in the industry in Canada. I didn't know it. I was living in Winnipeg, and he took me on. Certainly, I was not at the level of assets that he would normally have, but we'd become friends. And it was through that association, learning the basics, the four cornerstones of financial management, that I began to understand how to use money as a tool, where to allocate, where that growth should happen, how to set up for risk. and it really helped rebuild, after the divorce. And then when I met the woman who I'm currently married to, it was really beneficial because I developed a way to talk about money in a healthy way that it was as free from emotion as it could be for me. And of course, she has a different attitude towards money, but we're able to talk about it, and it doesn't blow everything up. So by this time, I was 44 or 45, I think, and kind of looking at where I was in my career. I was working as a project manager for an IT company by then, which was something I wasn't really passionate about. I don't have an interest in computers, but I really like people, and that's what project management mostly is. But I thought, I don't really I can't see myself working here for another 20 years until it's time to retire. So I thought, what do I want to do? Well, I'm not a very good employee because I don't do what I'm told. I want to show up when I want to show up. I'd like to build something that has value. I want to have some independence, and I really want to provide something that helps people. And I thought the advisor that I had worked with checked all of those boxes. So I had that conversation. I said, "You've built a big business. You help a lot of people. You've got a great lifestyle. Maybe I should do this." And he was very enthusiastic. He got me in touch with what was then, it was called Freedom 55. It was a division of London Life Insurance. I took my insurance exam and my investment exam, got my licenses, started working in that particular system. And that was in 2012. And so 13 years later, I'm independent now. I left that org. I mean, it doesn't even exist anymore. It was purchased by Canada Life, and then the whole industry has changed. So we're almost all going independent now. So there's me. I brought on a younger advisor last year, and then my wife did not renew her nursing license a couple of years ago, and she works doing our administration.
I love your analogy of being a financial flight planner. And I just want to know, I kind of know what it is, but I'd love you to share like what inspired the concept and how does it guide your approach with clients?
Another advisor that I really admire, he has a nautical theme, and he says that his focus is you're going to go off and you're going to build your cruise ship. I'm going to build your lifeboats. So when you do hit the rocks, you're going to be okay. And I thought, yeah, that really makes sense. That it's the lifeboat. It's the reason why the sinking of the Titanic is such an incredible tragedy, rather than an interesting nautical anecdote. If they'd had enough lifeboats, everybody would have survived, and it would have been one of many ships that had a disaster, but it wouldn't have had the tragedy cachet that it has. So I thought,
that's a pretty obvious.
yeah,
It's pretty obvious, when you look at it that way.
Think about all the ships sinking that you've never heard about, and you haven't heard about them because everybody got off.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So then I thought, well, I don't want to do exactly that, and what's a metaphor that I can relate to? And both my grandfather and my father had, my grandfather taught pilots in the Second World War. My dad, first started his career in the Canadian Air Force before going to law school. And while I never pursued that, aviation has always been something that has been around. And I thought, well, your financial life does sort of follow a financial flight plan, from the early stages of your career when you're just taking on fuel, to the takeoff phase, to gaining altitude, to cruising speed, to a landing pattern. There are different requirements at each of those, and then you have to course correct as things come up. And you need fuel for those things. You've got turbulence, you've got failure. Those all relate to components of financial planning. And I find that it's a metaphor that resonates with people. And when I'm able to describe that, and I'll say, great. So if that makes sense to you, where do you see yourself on that? And they go, oh, I think I'm in the taking off fuel. And this could be somebody he's 22 and just started working. So yeah, I think that's where you are too. And here are the three things we need to focus on for you. Or, I think I'm in the cruising speed. It's like, great, that's where I am. I can relate to that. Here are 3 things that we should probably focus on there. And if you got them, terrific. And if you haven't, maybe we should do something about that. And then, it takes it away from me looking for what can I sell you to where is it on your life plan that has a gap that needs to be filled with a solution. And if not, great, we'll talk next year.
Well, and it really speaks to your passion for teaching, like educating your clients, but also because of this financial flight plan structure that you've set up, it really educates you as someone's financial planner, but it also opens the door for you to educate your clients in the best way possible to make the best possible decisions.
Yeah, thank you.
So what do you find the most rewarding about this way of doing things? Like, how does that show up for you?
Yeah. So if you look behind me here, it's probably a little blurry, but on the wall, I put that collage together a few years ago. And in the center, there's a young couple. And radiating out from the couple are arrows that show what that life could be like down the road. So because of you set up a financial plan in your 20s when most of your friends think you didn't need to, you didn't think you had enough money to do that, and it wasn't going to be worthwhile. Because of that, you're in a position to, in one case, go on vacation when you want, or help your kids with their schooling, or help your parents, or have a vacation home. All those other things that young couple has as an option are only because they took action early on. And the thing that's so rewarding is seeing that happen. Someone that I worked with 8 or 9 years ago, and we got a little bit of critical illness insurance and started them on a TFSA. And then the first home savings plan when it came along, or maybe they used their RSP for the first home buyers program. 8 years later or 9 years later, they have a house, or maybe they're on their second house. They have a child, or maybe their second child, and that kid has education savings, and they've gone on a vacation, or they've been able to help their parents. I have stories and stories of people who did the small things, the basic of just getting started and keeping going, that now are able to look around and go, holy smokes, we're adulting, and I never thought we were going to do that.
Yeah, I can relate to that being very rewarding when you see your clients really taking the advice, working with it with you, and seeing their financial world grow.
The pinnacle of that is the young woman who joined the firm last year has been a client. She is one of my examples of someone who did all the things that we put together in the plan, and she saw the results, and some were unexpected, and decided, this is so valuable for me. I want to give it back to my community. And it's a thrill to see her grow in that role.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, like, you're not only a financial advisor, and I really want to kind of bring this up now before we move forward, because you are, you're one of the first people we met when we moved to the community in Victoria here. And you are so involved in the community, and you were one of the people that I wanted to have on my podcast originally, because you are an everyday change maker. And I'd love for you to share, I'll start crying in a minute, just in a nutshell, like the different organizations that you work with, that you're volunteering for, that you support, and I know that you go into some high schools and educate the students on financial planning. Can you share, just in a quick nutshell, kind of all the things that you're involved with? Because you're more than just a financial advisor. And I know the impact that you're making and have made and are continuing to make in the lives of so many people.
Well, thanks. I think part of it is because I have ADD, and I don't think I could sit at my desk for 8 or 9 hours a day and just work on people's finances.
I don't know how you do it. I mean, I've told you that before. I'm like,
I don't know how. I'd be much more successful if I did. So one of the first organizations I joined, well, I mean, I've had a long history of involvement. When I was rowing, I was on the club executive. I've coached kids in hockey and baseball. I figure if you're there, you might as well be pitching in. When I started the business, one of the first things I did was join the West Shore Chamber of Commerce. Firstly, because it's what's I saw that successful people were members, so why wouldn't I do what successful people do? So yeah, I joined the chamber. I'm just finishing my 10th year on the board. I was president for 4.5 years. And the chamber is just a great way to be a part of your community and things that maybe they don't immediately give you a financial reward. There's not a one-to-one between I went to this meeting and I got this piece of business, but it's if we accept that we live in a society where relationships are how business decisions are made, then you want to be with people who share those values.
Exactly. That's definitely one organization I wouldn't not be a part of, just because it does make a huge difference in building relationships and being around other successful people.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a member of Advocates, which is our professional association. So while you have an insurance license and an investment license, and you have all kinds of regulations that you have to maintain in the profession, there's no requirement that you have to belong to your professional association, which I think is bonkers. If you were a doctor or a dentist, you would not operate a practice without belonging to the BC Medical Association or the BC Dental Association, or if you were a lawyer, be part of the law association. But for that, I see that as my opportunity to raise the bar on professionalism, so that when someone is having a concern, or they want to grow their business in a manner that is fully compliant and ethical, that we have those standards for them. And then people who choose not to do that can be disciplined. And I've been on the board of that because that's a lot of fun too. I am. So Rotary is another organization that I'm very passionate about. And Rotary, for those that don't know, is a service club. It's international. There are chapters wherever it is that you are. And our main focus is to raise money and then give it away so that projects that satisfy mandates like access to clean water and education for girls and sustainable food access and literacy and public works, they have the funding that often government is either unable or unwilling to do. And the great thing about Rotary is it is one of the times when I can sort of take off my advisor hat, because it's not used for who can I network with that there's an opportunity to do business with. And then and we'll probably talk about Rotary because that's the project that you and I are. And then there's a fourth one that whenever I list the four, I can never remember.
100 Men. 100 Men.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So some colleagues and I started a group called 100 Men Who Care in 2018. And we get together 4 times a year with other 100 men. And everybody has $100, and there'll be 3 local charities that will be nominated, and the representative from the charity or whoever nominated them will pitch, and we all vote, and whoever gets the votes gets the money for the night. So it's a really fun way to, in an hour and a half, to help a local charity, anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 that they wouldn't have received otherwise.
Again, it's like, how do you do it all? I mean, that's why you're on the show, because you're such an inspiration. And it just goes to show, I mean, you could have your own, you can work a full-time job, you can have your own business, but you can still give back to your community. And you're a perfect example of that. So, but I guess the big question is, how do you, well, how do you stay motivated, and how do you have the energy to do it all.
So let's talk about motivation. So
Yeah.
a good friend of mine, Ben Rutledge, who was in the 2008 men's Olympic 8 in Beijing that won gold. I attended a talk he gave recently, and he was talking about, we think about getting something done and motivation backwards. You think, well, I sure wish I was motivated to run a marathon or start a business or improve my relationship with my children. And waiting for motivation to happen is a poor strategy, because motivation doesn't come without something else, and it's actually action. Action is what leads to motivation. So if you want to run a marathon, there's lots of times when you're not going to be motivated at 6:30 in the morning to go out and run 2 or 3 miles. But getting up and running 2 or 3 miles provides that endorphin and dopamine reward loop that then motivates you to do it the next time. Actually, action is the driver for motivation. Motivation is the reward for the action. So
it's confidence building too, to get even reach higher next time.
Absolutely. So if you're in a business, let's say you've started a mortgage business and you don't have any clients, and you think, wow, I sure wish I was motivated to go and pick up the phone or hand flyers out at door to door. You will never do that if you're waiting to be motivated for it. But picking up the phone and making 3 calls will then, and maybe they're lousy calls. Maybe people hung up on you, but maybe somebody said, oh yeah, no, we were thinking about renewing our mortgage and you're calling at the right time. The activity itself generates the motivation to do it again and do it again. And then that ends up becoming a habit. And once it's a habit, you no longer need the motivation, because it's just every day I pick up the phone and I make 3 calls. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I can relate to that. I mean, we all kind of do it in waves, but I mean, it's that feeling of accomplishment, confidence, to just keep going, and knowing that you're making a difference, I think does play into it. Am I right?
Successful entrepreneurs don't roll out of bed motivated. Successful entrepreneurs roll out of bed willing to do the things that unsuccessful people are willing to do, without any expectation of reward.
So how would you describe we know you're making a positive impact, but how does your work, how do you see it show up in the community?
It's very hard to go anywhere without running into somebody that wants to talk to me about some project that they want to do, and they want me to join their board for it. So
it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, that certainly feeds my vanity. But how does it show up? I mean, there haven't been. Let's see. How can I put this? So far, we haven't built the outdoor pool, for example, which is something we'll talk about.
It's going to be, though.
It's going to be. Yeah, but we did build the Sarah Beckett Memorial Park in 2019. So that was a Rotary project that was a bold vision and required the coordination of a number of community supporters to get that done. With the chamber, when I took over the presidency, my goal, I think we were about 385 members, and my goal was to get the membership up to 400. Where it is now, it's consistently over 400. But that takes having 2 people added and 1 people leaves, and then 2 people added and 1 people leaves. And so it's kind of always increasing in balance. So it is the incremental 1% change and improvement every day that has compounding effects. You cannot look around and say, because I went to this chamber meeting, that thing happened. That link doesn't exist. But if you hadn't gone to that chamber meeting, if you hadn't made that phone call, if you hadn't had a coffee with somebody if I hadn't had that coffee with you 3 years ago to talk about what it was that you were passionate about, we wouldn't have been talking about pool at all.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a ripple effect, and I think that Yeah, it's something that kind of happens gradually but smoothly at the same time. And like you said, I mean, if you weren't there at that certain time, or you didn't meet that one person, or you didn't help that one family, and that's the other thing that you do is, you help provide people with financial stability that gives them more freedom and allows them to do what they need to do or want to do, or what they're interested in, or what they're passionate about. And so it's kind of like it's a ripple effect, but it's also a circular thing, I think, in a way. So that's why we need people like yourself.
And success is one of the best ways to make a difference in the world. I think my dad had said this to me back when I was struggling at university, thinking, oh, what am I wasting my time with this for? I should just be going and helping people. And he'd said, you can go and you can help one person, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you become a successful person with means, you can help more people on a greater scale. So I think it comes back to that the adage around the negative attitudes towards money, that money is the root of all evil and money can't make you happy. But if you have millions, you can do things with those millions. You can start foundations. You can build wings of hospitals. You can construct transition housing for women. You can build water facilities in Africa. Being poor, and I hate to use that phrase, but being poor is, you can't help anybody.
I mean, the other things that you do, you have the family legacy events that you work on to help women over 60. You also are very passionate about cross-generational education. Can you talk about those things?
I have learned through the years that very often women of a certain age, and it's 65 and older, there are two things that are impacting them, and it sort of comes back to that conversation about wealth transfer. Is in many cases, and I realize I'm generalizing, but in many cases it has been the male spouse who has been responsible for most of the financial planning. Not that she hasn't been involved, but in some cases she doesn't even know how to access the bank account to do the login. So that is something that raises a flag with me that, well, what happens if Barry dies? Do you know about what the plans are? Are you assigned as the beneficiary on anything to take advantage of the spousal rollovers? Does Barry have something special that he would like to see continued that the two of you haven't talked about? What was Barry's legacy? So that's one area. And then the second is, there's still of that generation where they haven't had that conversation with their adult children about what's supposed to happen with their finances when they die. And so I may have clients who are in their 70s and 80s, and we have a great relationship, and they've enjoyed the process. But I haven't met their adult children, who I know are the beneficiaries of their money. And I'll say, well, we've got a great relationship. How come I haven't met Michael and Susan? And it's like, oh, we just don't talk to our kids about money. And I said, okay, but you realize then that the first time I meet them is I'm going to be handing them a check. That's me handing somebody a check, and they will have had no idea what the money's for. The amount may be a surprise to them. If we don't have a relationship, how are you confident that what you wanted to have happen with this money is going to have happen with that money? So let's have an opportunity where we can have those conversations to say, your father and I worked really hard and we amassed this, and what we would like to have happen with it is, we want to make sure that our grandkids are set up, or we're excited about the Therapeutic Horse Riding Association, or all those other things. So just creating a safe space where women can get together and guided by professionals that I trust to help pull those awkward conversations out and help them to see maybe it's worth engaging our services on a level greater than just let's have an annual review and are you okay?
Now, what you're talking about is, I mean, as a woman approaching 60, these are definitely things that have crossed my mind, which I'm so happy to have you to be there to help me, because what am I going to do when I can't stop work? Or sorry, what am I going to do when I can't pick up a camera anymore? Or what am I going to do, um, you know, with my time? Or what am I going to do? Like, do I understand everything that's related to my money? Do I have enough knowledge to pass that down to my son? And so this is so important because a lot of women, me included, I mean, my husband managed our family budget for most of our marriage. I mean, you have to put a lot of trust in somebody to do that, right? Do I understand where all the money's going?
That's the other thing I do, which you did mention, is I do a junior achievement
That's right.
financial literacy in the high schools at least once a semester. And
Yes.
it's usually the
So
accounting
awesome.
class where I come in for 4 classes and just give some basic financial literacy. And it may be the only time that somebody has talked to these students about debt and income and credit and insurance and investing. So if one or
Yeah.
two kids comes out of that with the understanding that, oh, I probably should, make sure I don't spend more than I earn, or I should have an emergency savings fund, or uh, it's what I find interesting is, as I've said this, Linda, um, in both cases, the family legacy and the junior achievement, both of those are efforts that have no expectation of a sale that comes out of it. They're
Mm-hmm.
none of the kids from the school are going to become clients, and the people that are attending the seminar, the women attending, are either already clients or they already have an advisor someplace else that I don't want to poach. But
Mm-hmm.
the raising that financial literacy within the community is beneficial for everybody. And if that's better for everybody and everybody's wealthier, then down the road, yeah, my assets under management are going to grow because everybody's has.
What I really wanted to talk about with you, too, because it's kind of been underway now for a couple of years, and we mentioned it briefly, is the outdoor pool project that we kind of started, I guess, when in 2023 we started talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's when we had our first conversation.
Yeah, and so I became a member of the Rotary Club. Just a little backstory for all the viewers. I guess it was in 2022 or 2023, and then we had coffee one day, and you said, "So, Linda, what do you want to work on? What's your project?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And then I said, "Well, how come there are no pools in Victoria? There's no outdoor pools. Like, what the heck, And so that's kind of how this all began. Um, and so I guess we want to talk a little bit about, because we decided to spearhead this project together. So we're co-leads on the project. We have a committee that's helping us. We're still a ways away from this being a reality, and it's a lot harder than people would think. Because a pool is going to cost a lot of money and we have to raise the money. And so we're working with the West Shore Rotary Club to help us with that side of things. So I don't know if I've ever asked you this. I mean, because you've been a member of the Rotary and you're very passionate about the organization and helping communities with whatever, they need. So I'm just curious what you're into, like what inspired you to kind of work with me on this, I guess.
When you said that, and I'd asked Linda that question, and she said that when having moved from Vancouver, where there was lots of pools, it was weird there weren't any outdoor pools here, and it
Yeah.
never occurred to me. Your statement hit me like a 2x4. How is it
Oh,
that I could have looked around the community that I've lived in for many years and never thought there aren't any outdoor pools? I grew up in Southern Ontario, and there are lots of community pools. When I lived in Winnipeg, we had lots of community pools, and that's a place where the season is super short. So why
yes,
is it
exactly.
that
Yeah. On the West Coast, you would think it would be a
it's
bigger window.
it's crazy? And
Mm,
then started doing some research as we put the idea together and learned that you know, there outdoor pools are a great social leveler. That it is something that everyone has access to. Wealthy people will always have access to recreational facilities, but the people without means, and in Canada that often is representative of visible minorities who are increasing in numbers. as global migration occurs, don't have access to that. So we will see a greater polarization in our communities between the haves and the have-nots, where there isn't going to be a common area where we can all get together. And a community outdoor pool is a perfect example of where that happens. And at the same time, since the sort of mid-'80s, governments on every level have stopped with infrastructure funding. So facilities that are 50 or more years older are falling into disrepair and closing. It's the perfect storm of rising taxation, rising population, and diminishment of public access to facilities.
So in terms of where we're at now, can you briefly explain for everybody where we're at and the Rotary's role?
Sure. So we first approached the city of Colwood with a proposal and said that this is what we want to do, and we think Colwood is the perfect place for it. They voted in favor of supporting the idea, which then hasn't really led to much necessarily, other than continuing to support it. We put the committee together. You and I have gone to the other municipalities and spread the word on it.
I haven't heard one person, say they didn't want it. I mean, yeah.
But what I wanted to do with Rotary was I didn't want to come forward with a proposal that we were looking at raising public funds through government and taxation, because there'd just be no demand for that. We've seen it over and over again that the public just won't get behind another boondoggle. So I'm very convinced that the money is out there in the private sector for the funding of the pool, between Rotary and the Kiwanis and the Lions Club and any other service group that wants to get on board. The corporate world, the opportunities to show their support for the community, for the capital investment for this, and it's probably going to be $15 to $20 million, depending on how it gets built. And at the same time, I want to build an endowment so that there are funds for the ongoing support and maintenance, so that it doesn't become something that we build and then now Colwood or the Juan de Fuca
Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. They have to pick up the bill, which then becomes a taxpayer issue.
I guess beyond the, we're looking at, long-term social and economic impact. How do you feel that the pool would have in those areas for the community and the region? And what are some of the challenges and breakthroughs that we are looking at or facing right now? Yeah. I mean, we know it's going to be a lot. It's not going to take a year. It's going to take probably 5, perhaps. Sure. I don't know.
Yeah. So there's the intangible benefit, which is just greater community spirit and involvement and getting to know your neighbors. That's hard to put a number on. There's always the spin-off of funds not spent. So if young people have a place to go and can have a community, studies suggest that they're less likely to be involved in detrimental activities, which are like crime, which is expensive. So reduction in the burden on policing. Then there are the direct benefits where lifeguards will be employed by the association, and somebody needs to clean it. And if we have a tuck shop, then someone's going to be manning that. And so there's revenue potential, as well as some of the services that could be offered, like swimming lessons and senior aquafit and water polo, and renting the pool for private functions. And if there are other facilities like a community center, a performance stage, those all have the ability to be part of it and contribute to the revenue generation. Then you get the economic byproducts of people coming from Oak Bay or Gordon Head or Duncan or wherever else to spend the afternoon at the pool, and they need to go and buy ice cream and go to the grocery store, and maybe they stay for dinner, or all these
Oh,
other things to
exactly. Yeah.
bring people in. And then the fourth component that we've looked at is the ability to bring people from farther away for competition. So
But I was going to say, yeah, I mean, we want our community, like our lovely mayor indicated. I mean, we want to make this a world-class community. And what community doesn't have a facility like this that has a
yeah,
pool, it has
yeah,
a recreation center, that has, other things that bring in all different age groups.
hmm
We want to accommodate children, teens, the elderly, yeah, I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer, but it's just always seems like it's something we need to sort of remind people about, right? This is a community building health and well-being. I mean, there's just so many aspects to it that are positive, right? And yeah, will leave a legacy as well.
yeah.
Um,
So if we have provincial swimming championships here, that brings
yeah,
in 750 competitors, most of whom have families that all need to stay someplace, and all will
yeah.
be eating and purchasing. We could hold triathlon competitions, long distance. I mean, the opportunities for doing bigger scale things, which have an economic potential, are, I wouldn't say
Hmm.
endless, but they are large in number.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing, which is kind of obvious, I mean, with so very few pools, I mean, one of the biggest problems that we're facing right now is just families have nowhere to take their kids for swimming lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Swimmers who are, competitive swimmers, they have to all go to, I think there's maybe one or two pools they'll have to go to, which at for some of them is quite a ways for them to go. So I mean, there's just so many little reasons. I mean, not little, but they all add up to, like, this is pretty important and necessary to have in any community. So it's quite
Mm-hmm.
exciting, and I'm really happy to be working on it with you. What are some of the things maybe I didn't explain that we're kind of just so we can keep people up to date with what's going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. So there are a couple of potential locations that have been earmarked. What we
Mm-hmm.
really need now is for someone with, neither you nor I have the experience in this area whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
but to come forward with what's called a feasibility study, which is, if a pool of this size gets built in this location, these are the parameters for it, and this is the expected cost. So that would be an engineering firm, a consulting agency. If you've made it through to the end of this podcast and you represent one of those, I'd love to hear from you. Uh, I would really like someone who is going to put this together as a donation in kind, so to the effort, so that we don't have to raise money just for the feasibility study. But if that's not available, then I need to know what it is that is required so that we can go forward with a grant application. Because once that's done, once we know it's going to be in this location and it's going to be this size, and we have some drawings for it, then I can go to the areas where I know people are waiting to give us money, to say, here's what it is, this is what's going to cost, this is this. You can imagine your signage right here, or over this part, or on the bottom of the pool, or let's start the funding here so we can get the excavator digging.
It's all very exciting. So I feel like I've had you on for so long now. But I do have a couple more questions. So we've worked together. Well, I'm your client. You're my client. I photographed you a few times. I'd love to just ask a few questions about your experience working with me and how you feel, visual branding has helped you in your business, in your various ventures, maybe in your personal life. um, what does that look like for you as a entrepreneur and change maker?
Okay. All right. So do you mind if I blow your horn?
Sure, go for it. I need a
So
little confidence boost.
yeah, I would say to anyone who has thought about getting real professional branding photography done, the difference between what Linda does and what your friend with an iPhone can do is more than just the understanding of light and apertures. from the time that you first begin the project with Linda, she is listening and formulating, how best to profile you in those pictures rather than just capture your image. She really works hard to understand what it is that capturing the essence of you so that those pictures can speak for you when you're not there. So
a tagline, one of them anyway.
I pay attention. So
Yeah.
I mean, certainly, one of the great things, we did a family shoot with you, and it is not only was it rare to get the kids together, so that created an excuse for that to occur. It's rare for all of them to coordinate on their outfits. Linda worked with us from the early stages to where do you want to have it, where do you see it, what kind of dynamics in the family, and the photos that were produced from that and the resulting book. I mean, those are cherished family heirlooms, something that'll never be reproduced, and something that future generations. I don't expect I'm going to be remembered past my great grandchildren, but at least there will be something that of an image that when the name is applied to it, they'll go, "Oh, that's that guy. I get it."
Sisters.
Yeah.
I still have so many photos of that I have no idea who these people are, but I'm glad I have them because that's my lineage. And I'm so glad my dad, had the wherewithal and foresight to, manage and maintain thousands of photos.
Yeah. So as much as we may cringe when someone pulls a camera out and wants to get a photo of Thanksgiving dinner, those are going to be important at some point to somebody.
Exactly.
And then professionally, the same thing. We spent quite a bit of time talking about what is the image, what is it that my business, how do I convey that? And I can't promise this for everybody, but Linda happened to know someone from dog walking who was the manager of the private hangar out at the airport, and we were able to get a day, pull the Gulfstream out, all the photographs.
Those are some of my favorite branding photos, actually. Yeah.
Just wish
So what are a couple of your favorite photos? Maybe if you can think of one for your business and one for your personal. Was there any? Can you think of a couple of photos that kind of are dear to your heart, and why?
Yeah, I mean, the family ones are great. There's no discounting that. Of the professional ones, I think probably the ones that I use most on my business card, which is there's one where we're in the lounge and you can just see the airplane in the background, and and then the other one that I really like is it's sort of a 3/4 profile where I'm beside the fuselage and looking up, and
that's a great one.
I think that I hope that gives people confidence. But I'll tell you,
it encapsulates your vision and confidence of being a financial advisor.
Yeah,
that was my feeling.
The one con in the whole thing, the one sort of detraction, is the photographs are so good that people think it's AI, that we photoshopped the plane in the background.
That's such a pet peeve of mine. I do post people's photos, and then there's always one person is like, "Oh, that's AI," and I'm like, "No, it's not.
Yeah,
shut up." So annoying, but it's kind of a thing now because AI is so prevalent everywhere now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. I think the last thing I want to ask you to wrap up. I mean, you are obviously a very active everyday change maker, and somebody that I admire and am inspired by all the time. I guess, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now, and what kind of legacy do you want to leave personally and professionally? And then lastly, what advice would you give to someone who would like to do something? Because not everybody has time to do multiple things. But yeah, where do you see let's start with where do you see yourself
Okay.
in 5 years?
Well, hopefully in 5 years, I'm able to go to the outdoor pool.
Exactly. Me too.
So I sort of feel I have another 10 years in my practice where I can work at the level that I have right now, which is, if I was honest with myself, it's probably 3/4 time.
Right.
I'm not interested in building an empire. I don't want to have, a huge practice. I want to keep our practice at the point where it's still personal. And if the phone rings, I know who it is on the other end, and, I know where they live, and I know their families, and I know the plan that we put together. I want Hannah, our associate, I want her to be at the point where she is thankful that she made the decision to join the practice, because she's helping people and is financially rewarded for it. I'm thinking of probably 2 or 3 more people on the team, maybe someone who's specialized in group benefits, that can help expand that. But I'm not going to be keeping my arms around everybody. If there's a better fit for someone to work with one of the other advisors in the practice, then I'm all for that, because we all benefit. I think as I approach that 10-year, I'll probably scale back to, just keeping the few clients that either really want to keep working with me or I really enjoy working with. So, I imagine you would still be in that group. And then, I'm able to take 2 or 3 months at a time and travel while I'm still capable of traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I know advisors who are in their 80s and they're still going to conferences and they're still learning. I would say the worst thing somebody could do is to retire from something, especially if they love it, and have nothing to replace it with, because that's how you get old fast.
That's true. Yeah. You always have to keep learning and growing.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, so my retirement plan isn't 65 and stop working.
Right.
What would I say to someone who wants to be a change maker but feels that they don't have the time, or they can't, or they don't know where to start?
Where would they start? Yeah, where would they start? What would your advice be?
I'd say first of all, one thing I've learned, and sometimes to my detriment, but I think it's probably a good principle to have, is if you're asked to do something, say yes. So that's one. You may not know what it is that you want to do, or what board you want to serve on, or what organization you want to be part of. But if somebody says, "Hey, we'd like you to come and get involved with muscular dystrophy, Victoria," yeah, I'll do that.
Well, I wouldn't have been involved with Rotary if you hadn't asked me.
So
I would never have thought of joining Rotary. Like, what's Rotary? But then, I soon learned it's been around forever. It's an amazing organization, and we wouldn't be doing the Pool Project if it weren't for that. Yeah,
people would be dying of polio if it wasn't for Rotary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even more important.
Yeah. So there's that, and if you're interested in something, if you're passionate about something, you find the time to put it in. Other things that are less important get smaller, and the time expands to fill the thing that you have. So it doesn't mean you have to change your whole life. You don't have to give up watching The Bachelor, but you end up just. Imagine I would ask whoever's listening, when you met your spouse, were you busy at the time? You probably had a pretty full day, and yet you met that person. You managed to find time to spend time with them because it made your heart go pitter pat. And it's the same thing when you find something you're passionate about, other things will become less important.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like when you feel so passionate about something, it's like you can't imagine not doing anything towards it, or you fall in love with someone and you can't help but want them to be a priority in your life. So yeah, that makes complete sense. In terms of, well, just in every way. This is kind of an obvious, But yeah, I think that's great advice, and an easy one too. I mean, it's just easy to say yes, and then if it's not for you, you know, keep going.
Yeah, yeah,
Find
give
something
it a
else.
try. And you don't have to serve on a board for 10 years like I have. You can do 2 or 3 years and finish a
Yeah,
project that you're passionate about and then move on to something else. That happens all the time. And
yeah,
every organization will be thankful for your participation.
exactly. Yeah, no, they're always every board I've been on. I mean, it's or anything that I've been. There's always been so much gratitude because a lot of people are scared to step up, or they're scared to get involved, or like, oh, I don't have time, or there's all sorts of reasons
Mhm.
that they come up with their excuses. So I think any amount. That's why I always, I say everyday change makers. You know, uh, it doesn't have to be a huge. It's not like you're necessarily changing the world,
Mhm.
but you're doing something that's making a difference in one way, shape, or form. Even if it's for a year, a month, a week,
Mhm.
it doesn't
Yeah,
really matter. I hope and I know that our listeners are going to, take away a lot from this conversation, and be inspired on their own journeys. So thank you so much for being here. And like I said, I'll put all your information in the show notes and how people can get involved with the pool project. And maybe include some of the organizations that you belong to in case they are interested learning more and perhaps joining and getting started.
great. Happy to help. Thanks for being interested, Linda. I appreciate it.
Have a great day. We'll
Thanks.
see you soon.
Bye.